Good evening. I'm MJ from Lioness Publications, and we're going to continue from this afternoon, and we're going to cover the President of India. And the President is Modi. Now, we have a birth date for Modi, and we also have an approximate time. There's questions about whether it's valid or not, but I used it. But it doesn't really make any difference in what I'm going to be saying because I'm not using any of the parameters that would have been developed from the ascendant or, in effect, the time of birth. Now, I have this set for August 31st. And, in effect, that's the day that he was meeting with both Putin and the Chinese president for their summit, along with other leaders. As I noted earlier, India's chart was nothing major was coming out from it. Seems like they're taking the path, at least from a country perspective, of diplomacy, but they are covering their bases and they are trying to work other deals, sort of reaching out to other countries, which is, what would be expected. And as I noted, what we're going to be doing is taking a look at some of these countries that could turn into flashpoints. India, depending on how it goes, could have been a flashpoint, but we're going to see that their reactions are going to be pretty middle of the road. Doesn't seem there's going to be anything extreme here. We looked at Venezuela, and same thing there. It seems their reactions are going to be relatively mild, that they're going to just try and enforce their propaganda on their people as to what's happening. So it doesn't look like they're going to be making any overt aggression. We'll see how that turns out. And we looked at the leader, and that's sort of the same thing with the leader of Venezuela. So now we're going to look at Modi and see whether he's sort of falling in line with his country, with sort of taking a diplomatic type of view towards all this. Now we have three charts. We have the transit, we have the progression, and we have the solar arc. And on the transit, there are two items I want to talk about. One is Jupiter, and that is squaring Neptune here. That actually happened right around 8/22 of this year, so August 22nd. Now, Jupiter here coming in on Neptune, in effect, Jupiter, and it's a square, which means that it is a tense angle. It's a stressful one, which means both Jupiter and Neptune are not reacting well here. So Jupiter is overextending on what? In effect, maybe the illusions. So he was probably moving into this latter part of negotiations with Trump on the trade deal, and also on this summit. He's moving into that with, let's just say he's overextending himself, that his statements are outpacing reality. But that's, leaders do that all the time, leaders of countries. So that's, again, nothing new, and other people would be expecting it. Next, on 9/1, which is in effect when the summit's going on, we have Mars conjuncting Neptune. Okay, so now Mars is what? Mars is action. And it's coming down, in effect, to act on sort of this foggy area. So he's trying to do some actions in a summit where he's probably not able to get anything firm. And everything is still foggy, it's unclear, the boundaries aren't clear. So they're really probably not getting into specifics. They're probably saying, yes, we'll do trade, but nothing specific. So in effect, he's probably coming into this hoping, or he came into it hoping to get specifics here. And that's not going to happen. So he can't lead in any way here if everything is unclear. So is this someone that, he might be a little frustrated from this? Because it's trying to, Mars trying to act on Neptune is just trying to catch a shadow. You can't do it. So he would be frustrated. But I don't see anything else that indicates, any aggressive action, anything that would be hurtful to his people. Okay, so let's move on to the progression. In this case, we're going to be looking at three configurations here. The first one I want to tackle happened around April and May. And that is this Mercury it's square to Mercury, Sun, and Saturn. That's a pretty hefty configuration to have in his natal chart. So that's going to color a lot of things that he does in life. So definitely very thoughtful. He wants to see plans and details. The Saturn there, very focused. Probably, even though he's diplomatic, he's probably, he wants to get to the meat of this. So you're not going to deter him very easily from what he wants to get through. Now, in this case, with this Mercury squaring all that, and this was happening in April, May timeframe, communication misfires, contradictions, issues with policies. This is about the time that people were finding out what their tariffs were going to be. So this is when he found out that his country was going to have very high tariffs. Now, the way he's going to react is he's going to try and make sense of it. Or he did try. But again, he's very thoughtful here. And from this point, he's saying this just doesn't make sense. So, what else do we have? We've got the next one that was 8/12, August 12th. And here we've got the Mars in Pluto. So here we do have a little bit of aggression, but in effect, it's on trying to control a situation. So we've got Mars as the progressed Mars coming onto Pluto in his chart. So he is trying to control the situation. He's trying to make sense of it. Could this lead to power struggles, things like that? Yes. So this was probably the last round in August with Trump, when Trump finally said, yep, okay. It was the thing with the Russia where if you're buying oil, we're going to raise your tariffs up to 50%. And it was a power struggle. Modi didn't seem to move on that. He was still going to buy oil from Russia. So we'll see where that goes. But this happened already, this Mars, Inc., Pluto. And again, it was a break and adjust type of angle, which is exactly what happened. Modi said he's going to buy oil. Trump says, well, we're going to put your tariffs up to 50%. Pretty high. Now, the next thing we have, and this is happening next year in February, we have the Sun squaring Venus. Now, at this point, he might start to be fraying a little bit because this is his identity, the Sun. And the Venus, typically it would be your social group, your peer group, your community. But when you have a leader, that really extends out really to your country, the people in the country. And what's going to happen is that his identity has progressed to some point where his people are going to be saying, I don't recognize this anymore. It's sort of going to be what he's showing everyone is not what everyone wants to see. So it could be that he's going to have to come out with different policies, different things to make up for the shortfall in goods being exported. But it is going to show up as some cracks in his country. But from the India chart, we're not seeing anything very, we're seeing some rebellious pieces, but nothing so far that to me is really alarming. Again, I'll go back and look at it later. So now let's take a look at our last chart, and that is the solar arc. Now, the first thing we have on the solar arc happened right around 829, right around this time. So likely some evidence of this was showing up in the summit, but it's also going to come back, and it's going to be happening on one of the other planets here around November 2nd. And this is Uranus coming in and hitting your Saturn, Sun, Mercury. Wow, Uranus, electrifying changes. That in itself is saying, okay, so we're changing things. Could be technology coming in, could be breakthroughs, could be breakthroughs in AI coming through. So there could be a lot of potential here. And what is it hitting? It's hitting Saturn. So in effect, it's blowing up literally, making, revolutionizing the way that things, the routines, the way things are done, the focus on things. So in effect, the structure. So it could actually change some things in the government. Now, it's also changing him, his identity. So it's sort of electrifying him. And he will probably get very, a lot of charisma at that time. So I would expect that his followers might increase. So in effect, the percentage of population that likes him. We also have Mercury. So his thoughts, his plans are definitely going to be revolutionized. So he may think of new ways to get his country through whatever is going to be coming up. Now, as a note, the Uranus conjunct Saturn sometimes sort of, I don't want to say blows up things, but it can damage structure because this is just a very electrifying type of configuration. Now, the next thing we have here is Mars is coming up to do an inconjunct to Venus. Mars and Venus. So we have charisma, but we also have sort of like standoffish. Mars is supplying sort of that aggressive type charisma, but Venus, on the other hand, is sort of like, oh, don't do that. So it's an appeal to the public, but it can be too strong. So he could be forcing things down the country's, in effect, his voters' throat, some of the policy, some of the things he wants to do. But it seems that they're still, I want to say, willing to maybe take on a little bit of this, because it doesn't actually say no. It sort of says, okay, maybe, adjust it a bit and we'll do it. Last thing we have is Mercury here is squaring Venus. Mercury is thoughts, plans. In effect, Venus is the people. What I suspect is going to be happening here, and this is around December 8th of this year, propaganda, media control, things like this, it's actually going to start pushing in a different direction. And what's going to happen is the people are going to know that. They're going to know what's usually the position of the government versus it's now going to be a difference. But this is Mercury on Venus. So again, nothing really heavy here. The Mars on Venus is a little bit heavier, but again, it's not like a Mars-Pluto or a Pluto-Mars type. So relatively calm, and I would say diplomatic. So do I see anything that might be troubling right now with India or with specifically Modi as we're covering him? No, I'm seeing him still as being diplomatic. I'd like to find out what's going to be happening later with this technology thing, because that seems very promising since it's showing up in his solar arc. And again, the dates might differ. In a solar arc, depending how off your birth time is, it could be, a month and a half or so. So we'll see. I hope you enjoyed this. And just as a note, I do charts for people. Information is on my website, which is lionesspublications.com. Have a great evening. Bye now.